All right, and welcome to Note Investing Made Easier. I'm your host, Martin Saenz, and once again, we thank you for joining us. We are, it's been such a blessing to see the group grow over the course of months, and we hope that you guys are getting a good deal of value from the group. And I know today I've been very excited and in anticipation for the interview here with Chad Urbshott. And welcome, Chad, to the program.
Thanks, Martin. Thanks for having me on. It's such an honor to be interviewed by you, especially when I'm up in the ranks with the likes of Dave Van Horn and Bob Malecki and Dan Zatofsky and all those big. So no, I really appreciate you having me on here. So it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the name of the webinar game, if you will, is hustle. So that's what I'm looking for. And if I feel like you exhibit that, if I feel like you're doing business the right way, and I feel like you can be a contributor to the group, then chances are at some point that you'll come on. So
Right.
So let's get right to it. So you are born and raised in Canada, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Originally, I'm from the Toronto area, Toronto, Ontario, Canada area. Yeah. And then had a place down in Florida. So I set up shop down there about 5 years ago, investing in the U.S. down in Florida, bought a place or built a place, and then unfortunately had to sell it last year and then moved back to Canada again. Well, I never really did move down there. I've got a visa and everything, but was spending quite a few months of the year down there with the business at the time. And then about a year ago, I guess, like I said, I sold it and just jumped full time into notes at that point in time. So.
No, that's wonderful. And we'll get to the notes portion of things.
Yeah.
I just want to give everyone a little background. So you started your career, your work profession career as a structural engineer. So, that just, gives me an indicator that, you're a highly intelligent guy, as most engineers I know are, versus myself. I did a philosophy degree as an undergraduate, and I couldn't even get a job with a temp agency. That's how bad it was. And meanwhile,
Right.
you're going up the ranks. So as you're getting your structural engineering degree and you start working for a big real estate development firm, which you did, didn't you feel like you were making it at that point?
Well, to tell you the truth, I started off working in an engineering design firm, not for a developer right off the bat. I started that, I was, from a small town, or actually from a farm originally, and I moved to the big city of Toronto, city of 5-6 million people, and I thought I'd hit it big. And after doing it for probably 6 months, well, probably about a year, I sit in front of a computer all day, and I was loving what I was doing. I loved the analysis, but I just, something came over me. I was like, I can't do this the rest of my life. There's no way. So then I ventured from there they put me into doing like field reviews, working with the contractors, looking at making sure they're building everything as per the drawings and the specs and have you. And it just came to a point where I was fighting them all the time, because these guys were not exactly cutting corners, but they did things their own way. And if there was a specific design, then they would be arguing with you about it, saying, well, we've been building it like this for 30 years. Why, or hundreds of years, why are you incorporating this into the design now? It's just costing a lot more money and a lot more headaches. So I'll never forget one day in specific. I was drove to a job site, and the foreman was standing at my car before I even had it shut off and had my door open yet, and he's just yelling at me like, "What are you doing? Like, there's so much rebar in this wall that we're building, we can hardly even fit it in there." And he's just giving me crap about how over-designed it was, and I didn't know what he was referring to at that point. So I go over and look at it, and it was actually it was being built over top of a subway system. So I'm like, well, I actually hadn't done the design. Someone else in my office had done the design. I was just there to make sure it was being built properly. And so I was trying to explain to him, well, that it's likely designed this way to handle the load, and it's over the subway, and There's vibration you have to take into account, blah, blah, blah. And he just wasn't getting it. Anyhow, and it was about in Celsius, minus 20 something that day. So probably around 0 Fahrenheit. So it was just freezing. And so I get back to the office, and I was telling my boss at the time, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I've dealt with that guy lots of times. He's a bit of a loose cannon, or a bit of a hothead." And and this guy was probably not much older than me at the time. I was in my early 20s, and he said, "Do you have any idea how much that guy probably makes?" And so at the time he told me, and it was basically double what my salary was. I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" So so it wasn't long after that I joined the dark side, as they call it, and joined a contractor. And at that point, I guess I could say I thought it had it made. I was making really good money, and I was more in a business development sales role where I was actually out speaking with people as opposed to just sitting behind a computer all day. And no, I really enjoyed the role, and but just something just came over me. I just thought, I can't do this for the rest of my life either. I can't work for somebody else. And at the time, I'd started doing real estate. This is back in 2006 or 7, I guess, just buying some rental properties. And every time I got a bonus, I guess, I got pretty decent bonuses back in the day. Just put it into real estate and started collecting properties and doing rent-to-owns. And then I ventured into buying some student rentals, student apartments. I actually did a 3-story office development with a former family member. And then it was about back in 2013, I guess it was, where I just had enough of the working world and just jumped into full-time real estate. And that's when I started investing down in the U.S., down in Florida, and haven't looked back since then. And then eventually that, as we'll get into it, I eventually rolled into notes about a year ago, I guess, now full-time into notes.
So 2013, you jump into real estate and then into notes, and we're going to get into RSI and your experience with RSI in just a minute.
Yeah.
But what I want to know, what I'm curious about is, at what point from the 2013 point did you say, there's no going back, this is going to be my full-time profession going forward?
Well, it was right in 2013 when I jumped in just full time. So at that point I had kind of thrown in the towel in the corporate working world. And, I just thought, well, I just got to make this work. And it was a lot, the truth be told, it was a lot harder than I was expecting. Not only was I starting to invest in not even out of area, new country, from Canada, because I'd only invested in Canada up until that point. I was investing in a new country and, out of state, and I wasn't down there full time at the time. So it was long distance investing, on top of learning all of the nuances of investing in a different country, like when it pertains to tax and liability and how to set up your structures properly. And the list goes on and on and on. So I had actually joined a guru back I think it was 2012. So I've sort of learned my way through that outfit. And
what outfit was that?
It's a Canadian outfit. It was he has revamped himself, but he actually, like a lot of gurus, he ended up going bankrupt and started up again. So I won't name any names.
No, that's fine.
He burned a few people, but he's back in business again. And they reached out to me the other day.
Then we'll talk offline.
Yeah. So, but I did, and it was an expensive one of those, multi-thousands of dollars to join it for a year, and you get the coaching, what have you. And I did learn a lot, but there's no better way of learning than just actually jumping in and just doing it on your own. And so I think at the beginning I bought a couple rentals, and within the first 6 months, and back in the day, back in 2013 especially, not only could U.S. citizens get financing, especially for rental properties or for investments. Good luck if you're a foreigner or a Canadian trying to get investment. No Canadian banks would invest or would lend money on any outside of the country. And then better luck getting a U.S. bank trying to finance you. So, after buying a couple, I was like, well, man, I'm out of capital now. What do I do? So it didn't take me long to realize that, well, I got to start generating more active income versus passive. And that's sort of when I started jumping into flipping properties, and sold the rentals. And within like I think it was about a year I had them, they went up like 15%. I'm like, oh my gosh, this market is on fire. It's coming off the bottom now.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's right about around the time that I, through a connection, I met RSI and Bill Mills Group, and started working with them. I guess that was back in 2015, 16, somewhere around that time frame, 14, 15, somewhere around there. And
Right.
so yeah, I started working with Bill's group. And
how did you work with them? In what capacity?
So Bill and RSI, they're an asset manager for one huge hedge fund in particular, but a couple other hedge funds. So they manage all the assets within Florida, the state of Florida, and so they had teams of contractors and realtors set up, and RSI actually is a realty firm itself, so they've got some realtors under their belt. So yeah, they've got all the teams in place in different areas, and I was in the southeast quadrant of Florida, so Miami all the way up to West Palm Beach,
Mm-hmm.
up to Port St. Lucie. That was kind of the focus area. They had a really good contractor in place, and the whole team. But they were doing multi-million-dollar property flips for this hedge fund. So they would buy a property for say $1 million, or it's kind of like $1 million and up, and they would put $200,000-300,000 grand into it, and then sell it for 1.5 to 2 million. So they were doing a number of those, and the contractor
They were just reselling, right? They weren't selling with seller financing or anything like that.
No, just doing a retail flip basically. And the contractor that they had, he could do anything from a $10,000 rehab up to $500,000 rehab. So got introduced to that team, and just started doing that, and did some wholesaling. And so there's one realtor I work with in particular there. His name's Ryan Poole, and him and I just hit it off really well. And we worked together for a year or two, or a couple of years, I guess. And so at the same time, I was learning a bit more about what RSI was doing and how this whole note business worked, and that's what kind of piqued my interest. And so I didn't do really anything with RSI as far as notes go, but that just kind of got my interest peaked, like I said, and so I just kind of started on a self-education path. And
what did you see? Did they kind of open you from an educational standpoint in terms of what some of what notes could mean for your portfolio, or did you just kind of see them in action, doing workouts?
Yeah, I got a tape from them. Well, I guess it was to see their active notes, or some of their active notes, and I got to see what they bought them for. What the P&I income was coming in on, what stage of the foreclosure process, what stage of the workout process they're in, and whether they're going to foreclosure. And I'm just looking at some of the returns, and it's just like, wow, these are mind-boggling. And but there's some of the good and the bad mix in there as well. So I remember one I looked up in particular, and I was actually thinking about buying some, and I'm looking up some of the, they said, here's the tapes, let you know, or let us know what you think. And I remember looking up one in, I think it was in Orlando or something, and it was a triplex. And when I went on Google Street Maps, the freaking thing wasn't even there anymore. Like, it was bulldozed, or I can't remember where I found it. It might have been on the county site, which was much more updated. And I'm just like, holy cow, unbelievable how some of these things turned out. You buy what you think is a building standing on these sites, and holy cow, they're not there any longer. So you really have to. That just sort of made me realize you really have to do your due diligence. So one thing I should mention, I should back up on, when I first started, or not long after I started investing in Florida, I spent about the first 6 months or to a year buying from foreclosure auctions,
Mm-hmm.
like right out the county, the courthouse steps. So that was a huge learning curve, and that's kind of where I learned to review titles, and I learned what an assignment of mortgage was, and if there was a subrogation where, or if a line of credit came along and took place of the first, and kind of learned all those terms and knew what to look out for. So that kind of gave me a leg up as well.
Did you learn through trial and error, or did you learn through someone guiding you, or you're just self-taught and you made good moves?
Yeah, I used a consulting firm that I later found out that I was kind of like the guinea pig. So I was, no, I'm not kidding you. I think I was like their number one first customer, and yeah, they definitely got me into a deal or two that I wasn't too pleased about. Ended up getting out okay, but I think it was like the second deal I did. It ended up I think I lost something like $12,000 on it or something, and obviously not too happy about it, but it's a $12,000 education if you ask me. So all the liens, they were great at pulling up liens and looking for everything attached, like HOA, because everything in Florida's got HOAs attached to it.
Mm-hmm. Can you explain that? Can you explain that, the super lien state?
Yeah, so in the state of Florida, well, it's not actually a super lien state, but in a foreclosure auction in Florida, the state of Florida, the actual lien is not wiped out. So it doesn't take precedence over the first lien mortgage or the second lien mortgage. It just remains with the property after it goes to foreclosure. There's also what's called the Safe Harbor Act, which means that if a bank or the lien holder forecloses out on the note, they have to pay the minimum of either 12 months of the back HOA payments, monthly payments, or 1% of the original balance. So they pay the lesser of. But if it's sold to a third party and you pick it up at the auction, then you're responsible for the entire HOA lien, including like all the past dues and the legal fees as well, which I wasn't aware of at one point when I bought one. And the attorneys down there, they're like sharks. They tack on unnecessary fees that run up into the thousands for writing a couple of estoppel letters. So I had to hire an attorney down there a few times to pay them $1,000 to get their attorney fees from the HOA down by $3,000. So yeah, so you live and you learn. But no, the one I'm referring to that I lost the $12,000 on, I wouldn't say it was any fault of the title searcher or the abstractor that was doing these searches for me. It was a code enforcement lien, which wasn't done by the building department or like the typical what do you call it, the code enforcement department. It was, if you can believe it, the prior owner, the borrower, was raising dogs in the house, and it was a total disaster. I've never seen anything like it in my life. It was like a puppy pound basically, and so he was raising dogs there, and he was getting fined by the city for not having like a vet's license, for selling dogs without a license, or selling, like, I don't know, you need some sort of license. Like he was selling them in like Walmart parking lots. So he had tacked up $28,000 worth of liens on the property, or not liens, but fines on the property, which were actually in his name. But when he bailed, like he kind of just flew the coop, the city just decided to attach him to the property. Well, they didn't come through the typical channel. They came through like the animal services department or something like that within the city of Miami. Yeah. So they came from another avenue that they didn't show up in any of the searches. So yeah. So once again, I had to hire an attorney. Well, my attorney down there, he got them, not completely absolved, but I still ended up having to pay a fair chunk. Not the 28,000, but I can't remember how much you got it down to, like 10,000 or something like that.
Yeah, but that's positive right there. If you can get the county down.
Yeah.
In any way.
Yeah. Well, these fines are just absolutely unnecessary and ridiculous. You ask me. They were just, they're just trying to collect from the guy that was doing stuff illegal around the city. So, argument, it was dragged out for 4 months, I think, until we got settled. And it was actually, we didn't discover them until the day I went to sell the property. I guess I was wholesaling it. Wow. And the opposing attorney that was doing the closing on it, somehow they came up in the search, like he did in like a full title search to get, through the underwriter, and that's where it popped up. And it's like, oh, it's like one of those days that you don't wish for. So anyhow,
Sure.
so that was kind of my learning curve on how to search title and know what to look out for. And so I guess it gave me a little bit of a leg up when buying notes. So.
And so your focus when you first were going through the RSI channel was on the buying first NPNs and focus being obtaining the property.
Well, no, we were just buying just directly off MLS and like wholesale deals and what have you. So we weren't. I did get a few offered from the hedge fund that they were representing, but like anybody, you'd think you get a good deal if you had an in, but they were trying to sell it, because the market's so hot in Florida. Why sell it to someone for a deal when they can get more if they they just listed it on the MLS sort of. So. I did get presented a few deals, but it was just like, I'm not really, it's no better than buying it elsewhere. So, unfortunately, they didn't have enough pull. Bill and the guys didn't have enough pull to get me a good enough discount to buy it from the hedge fund. So, yeah.
So what was the first note you purchased?
So the first one I did was, as I was doing my education in the business, or like learning more about notes, I spent probably a good 6 months just reading on like Bigger Pockets and just checking out webinars on YouTube's and just doing like couple hours a week sort of here and there, and then like an hour a night, and just really familiarizing myself. Read a couple books. I think I was back in Toronto, but at this point in time, I was I can't remember. I saw it like on a meetup group or something. I saw. Someone was talking about notes, and they're holding a meetup, and I'm like, holy cow, someone from Canada is doing this. So I went and attended it, and then I ended up doing a joint venture with this person, and we did about, I think over the next year or two, we did about 6 total, I think it was 5 or 6. And so the very first one I did was with him, and it was one of those home runs. Like we made a 70% ROI in like 6 months. So I was hooked. I'm like, holy cow, this is crazy. I think we bought it for 12 or 14 grand and ended up selling it for, after closing costs. And if it went right to foreclosure. It was actually already in the foreclosure pipeline, and it was in Texas. So it was obviously really quick. I can't remember exactly how much we sold it for. High 30s, I think, within like 6 months. And we, like I said, like I know the number was actually 70% ROI within 6 months.
So it's almost like the your trail, your pathway to get to that point where you take down the first note with a 70% ROI. The bankrupt guru, the courthouse steps, and that grind. And then, all the title work and, understanding all the nuances, from with buying from the courthouse steps. And then you get to the point where you pull down a note and you have a 70% ROI instant return. And so you see the light of day at that point.
Oh yeah. That was just like, wow, this is a business I definitely got to jump into. So I think when we sold it was 2016 when we sold that. And I was like, I have to start transitioning into this. However, I had everything tied up in like doing the flips and stuff with down in Florida. So, and I was doing some stuff in Cleveland as well. And for some reason, I should have just made the transition at that point in time. Just decided to just jump ship and go right into notes. But I was kind of doing it part-time while I was still doing the flipping, what have you. And then I guess it was back last year. I just made the decision. I think it was like April or May of last year. I guess at that point I'd already done 6 or 7 notes. I'm like, I'm just going to go into this full time now and just focus on notes. And since I wasn't in Florida as much anymore, or like hardly, I'm not down there as frequently. I wanted to jump into a business where you didn't have to be it wasn't location dependent. And as everybody knows in this business, you can do it from anywhere. And so I was like, well, yeah, I'm just going to do this full time. So I think it was May or June last year, started buying couple on my own, and then just started ramping up. Come
Okay,
what was it,
so
last
let's
year? So
stop right there, Chad. So you make a decision, early summer that you're going to go in full force, full time, being a note investor. So what are some of the first decisions you made
at that
at
time
that
when I
point?
was,
Yeah, at that specific point.
well, I think the first decision I made was I am going to use. So at that time, I'd freed up some capital from other sources, what have you. I'm gonna, even though I have a pretty good understanding of the business and I've done some joint ventures. If I'm doing this on my own, I got to use my own capital and learn the business on my own dime.
Mm.
And a couple reasons for that. Not only, I don't want to like take somebody's money when I don't know what the heck I'm entirely doing 100% yet. But I'm also, I guess, maybe a little bit greedy in that sense where why not use 100% of my money and keep 100% of the profits if I don't have to. So yeah, I did rate. One of them today, it went into bankruptcy. The other one, it was a foreclosure, and I think it was actually a 4-month for purchase closing. So I was, it's almost as good as buying them directly from the foreclosure auction. So, and that was, I think it wasn't a great return. I just wanted to kind of test the system, I guess, if you want to call it that. I think it was like 9%, but that was in like 4 months. So might have been 3 months because it was a 36 annualized return, I remember. So,
So
you can't really get that anywhere else.
okay, so you go in full force in summer. Did you set up an action plan for yourself? Did you put some structure around your days, on how to best use your time to advance yourself?
Yeah, that was a learning process, definitely. The systems I had in place for my like the fixing and flipping business, they were somewhat applicable, but not entirely. So I use a few different systems for managing my day. Systems that I had to restructure. So one tool I'm big on is Podio. It's I'm not sure if many people are aware of it, but it's kind of like a right out of the box. You start from ground zero, so it's very, very flexible, but it's very you can customize it in any way, shape, or form to fit your business. But on the flip side, it's not like a right out of the box and it's working for you. So I had to revamp all they call it applications or apps within Podio to fit the note business. So that was another reason I wanted to just start buying on my own. I'm like, I'm going to set my systems up as I go. So, as I'm learning, then I know how to set my systems up so that I can automate everything as I'm going and just kind of figure it out as I'm buying these things. And because I thought, well, I'll try to set up my systems ahead of time, but you don't really know how to set
You
them up
don't.
if you've never really done it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
No,
yeah.
that's great.
So,
So would you consider, everything you accomplished from the point of becoming a full-time note investor a success for last year? Can you look back in terms of what you did last year and say, I really crossed over a barrier for myself?
yeah, I think once I got up on my own belt and realized I could do this on my own, there.
Yeah. Yeah. You're
Oh, okay.
just kind of frozen a little.
Yeah, okay.
You're in Canada.
Yeah.
So there's the Canadian joke. I'm full of bad jokes.
No worries at all. No, I think, yeah, I decided, once I had a few under my belt, I could do this on my own and I don't need any hand holding. And I think it was by September, I was pretty confident that I could definitely make this work. And I just started buying a bunch more. And I think it was either right before Christmas or right after Christmas. I was on a podcast by Scott Carson, and it was all about your goals for 2018. And I came up with this goal to buy 50 or have 50 at the end of the year, so 2008. And I was hell bent to reach that goal, and I still am. But I think after I bought a bunch right around Christmas and bunch more in January. Once I got a whole bunch, I realized that, oh my gosh, I still need to set up my systems more. Like I just, everything it just seemed like I was in disarray. So I kind of took a bit of a breather and just was managing the ones I had at that point in time and just set up my systems a little better. And now, I'm at the point, I spent a couple months. It's not perfect, it's never going to be perfect. It's always a transition in this career. Something new comes up that, like, oh my gosh, I didn't see that coming at me. But and in that meantime, I think I've gone through every exit scenario. I've got had a couple deed and lieu's. I've had a couple bankruptcies. I've had a couple a bunch of foreclosures. I've had some workouts happening, some loan mods, forbearance agreements. So I've run all the gamut, I think, at this point. So I kind of know.
So are you buying primarily first? Are you buying primarily first?
Yeah, just first.
Okay.
Yeah, just first. Yeah.
So do you emphasize on your due diligence, do you emphasize the property or the borrower more so?
I would say 95% on the property.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you always want to exit through the property. And can you, for some of the folks that are newer within the group, can you just explain some of the desired exit strategies through the property?
Yeah, well, the number one exit strategy is always getting the borrower to reperform or do a loan mod of some sort. Not only do you get to let the borrower stay in their home, which is a win scenario for them, it's also a win for you as the investor because it ends up almost invariably being the highest return. Unless it's a low balance, low UPB loan that you're buying, like let's say you're buying at 30 and the property's worth 100. If we're closed on them, yeah, for sure you're gonna make a windfall. But do you really want to do that? Do you really want to go down that path unless it's absolutely necessary? No. But if you bought the mortgage for 150 grand and the property's only worth 100 and they haven't paid in 5 years, well, it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's a lost cause at that point. You're still going to want to try to get them to reperform again. But actually, in the case of the one bankruptcy I had, he hadn't paid in 5 years, and he's now actually. I just got the confirmation was last week, so I just got my first check from that one. Actually, it was yesterday, so which was nice. It was it was 6 months of pre-confirmation payments that I got from I think it was November when he filed bankruptcy. So that was a nice big check coming in. So did a little
good
on that when I got it. Yeah,
and then you'll look for that going forward. Well, since we're, you're from Canada and I'm from New Jersey originally, we're technically brothers. So I can give you a little brotherly advice.
Okay, definitely.
If and this is just, again, my opinion of how I've gone through mortgage note workouts over the years. And that is if your desired exit strategy is through the loan modification, then it's technically through the borrower. And if you have a due diligence process that emphasizes the property 95% of the time, then it may be advantageous to do a little bit more, shift a little bit more due diligence over to the borrower so you can understand their ability to pay before you take down the note.
Yeah, well, that's great advice. And I need to investigate a bit more on not maybe necessarily pulling credit scores and what have you, but one thing I've really started to focus on now is how many payments have they actually made in the last 12 months. If they've even made one payment in the last 6 months, but it's been sporadic, there's a better chance and they're still in the property, there's a better chance of them doing a loan mod or starting to pay again than someone that hasn't paid in 2-3 years whatsoever. So yeah, I do pay attention a bit more to that. So that's a pretty good indicator that there might be a good chance of them doing a loan mod again.
Yeah, I tend to focus.
I also I can't remember what. Oh, sorry.
No, please.
Oh, you're gonna say you tend to focus on what? Sorry.
Yeah, Martin, please. Just on when I buy a note, I'll do a preliminary look into the property. I'm buying seconds for the most part, but even when I buy a first, I'll do the same due diligence process, but I'll pull an O&E report. That's really the only difference when I buy a first versus when I buy a second. But I'll do an initial search or initial, understanding of the property from a fair market value with comps and crime levels and school levels and rent-a-meter and all that. But then when I really get into the heart of it is when I pull credit, when I go through Pacer, when I do skip tracing. Mm-hmm. That's when I'm really able to understand, delve into the borrower's past and understand their ability to pay. We have a question here, Chad. So Robert Burrell has a question. Burrell, I'm sorry. One thing I wasn't sure of, when you foreclose, don't you have to give excess of equity above your purchase and cost back to the borrower?
So when it goes to foreclosure sale, you can set your bid price, and it can't be above the final judgment amount, which is the original outstanding balance, any legal fees, any court finances you made, taxes, insurance, what have you. So that's your maximum bid. If someone bids above that at the auction, then if there's no other liens on the property, then that difference goes back to the home or the borrower.
Yeah. No, that's a great question, Robert. And so on the first that you're buying right now, well, actually, let's back up, because you mentioned, goal setting. You mentioned 50 notes for this year. What steps have you put into place to really just hone your skills to the point where you have the capacity to pick up and work out 50 notes?
Well, the big bottleneck I have is, and I think with most people, is the due diligence phase. That it's the old adage: you make your money when you buy. So you want to make sure that what you're buying is going to be profitable down the road. And I set up more of my systems for automating as much as possible doing the due diligence process. So I've got and it's actually tools that I built over the years when I was buying from auctions. So, down in Florida, South Florida especially, there was hundreds and hundreds back, 3, 4, 5 years ago, especially hundreds of auctions per week. And even back then, it was like, oh my God, how do I even know where to start, what to bid on these properties? So I started developing a tool back then where I could get a rough value of the property. Kind of based on Zillow and a few other tools where I could pull in comps. So it would actually pull in comps, and I could press a button and it would pull them in, and then I'd refine it a little bit further where I could take the average value of the comps and what have you. So that's one tool I've been refining over the years. So I kind of use that as my initial tool for getting just a rough ballpark estimate of the property. And then the next thing is, you always want to do at least a Google Street View or walk by of the property, the very beginning. So I've got Podio set up now where I can just load in all the properties from a tape, and it'll automatically can go through them one by one, and it'll show me the picture of the Google Street View, and I can move around, what have you. And then I've got some other tools that are still kind of in process, but it's always a work in process, like I said, where I can, this one tool I've got, the original tool, where it gives me the values, it gives me the number of beds, number of baths, the square footage, what have you. So I look at that kind of data, try to stay away from the 2-1s or anything under like 800 square feet if this is in a low income area. So narrow it out from that field. So the filtering down part takes a bit of time, but what really takes the most time, I find, is checking taxes and doing, that's what I find is the most tedious task. So I'm trying to I'm working with a couple of vendors right now that supply that data. I had one the last couple of weeks ago, and I was like, oh, this is fantastic. So exactly what I'm looking for. So I go in and I'm comparing it with the counties, and it was like Cuyahoga County in Cleveland, and there was like a $10,000 outstanding tax bill, and they said it was current. I'm like, oh, so I shot an email back to the vendor. I'm like, you're way up.
Who said it was current? Who said it was current?
It's a service called Data Tree. I don't
Okay.
know. Yeah, yeah. So
Is it current because a tax lien got sold?
no, it was I don't know what happened. They're still working on getting me an answer back why it was so
I
hard
paid
to.
I paid Cuyahoga County $2,000 to cut one of my lawns, and I didn't even know they were
Oh my
cutting
God.
it at $200 a cut.
Oh my God. Wow. Yeah,
So,
they're harsh there.
yeah. So let me ask you, because on one hand, you mentioned the golden goose being the loan modification, and
Mhm.
getting the bar to reinstate or what have you, and
Yeah.
moving your processes so that you can focus a little more on the bar. Do you think that I think once you do that, I think you're going to think less about the 2-1, or is it a 3-1, or
Yeah.
are they not landscaping the property from the front, as that
Right.
might be a reflection for how they live inside. Because I have
Yeah.
loan modifications that are underwater, and loan
Mhm.
modifications where the lawn is horrendous, and it's a 2-1 or what have you, but they're paying
Right.
all day long
Yeah.
because they're just those types of people that want to pay their obligations. They just couldn't at the certain time that they dropped off the map.
Right. Right. So are you doing that on your first as well as your seconds then?
I'm buying mainly seconds.
Okay.
However, I'll buy first. I'll buy first when the opportunity presents itself. What I
Yeah.
find with the first that are troublesome is the fair market values. So when I
Yeah.
buy a second, I'm getting at least 150K on up to 1 million fair market value. So these properties
Yeah.
are decent properties in decent neighborhoods, and
Yeah.
the first lien is going to absorb all the, they're the punching bag. So they're going to absorb all the costs with,
Yeah.
like with Cuyahoga County, what we just talked about with municipal tax liens, or, what have you, various judgments. So, yeah, so that's just kind of my philosophy, but I'll buy a first if I know that the properties, I at least have to know it's decent. It's not in a blighted area or what have
Right. Right. So do you do the same due diligence on the borrower for first as you do for second then?
Yeah, I'll pull credit. I'll pull. I do skip tracing. I do. I do pacer searches.
Yeah.
Um, if I'm doing a first, I'll pull an O&E, and that's really the only difference between the
Yeah.
first and second
Okay.
from a due diligence perspective. But I'll do everything you're doing: rent-a-meter,
Yeah.
school ratings, crime level, and
Yeah.
I don't walk the block as much on the Google guy,
Yeah.
but and I stay away from rural areas and some of the
Right.
other parameters that folks have in place.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I try to focus on areas that are 50,000 population and up.
So let me ask you, is money a challenge for you right now, raising capital?
Well, that's a good question. So I've had this conversation with people. I I guess about how long ago was it? 3, 4 months ago, I guess. As I said, I was putting all my systems in place, and I bought a big chunk of notes, like over 6 months. I got to the point where I'm like, okay, now my capital's starting to run out, and if I want to get to the 50 note level this year, then yeah, I definitely have to bring in investors. So I'm kind of at that point now where I'm starting to do some marketing for investors, and I've already got a couple investors on board. One invested through his IRA. He had no idea he could even set up his own self-directed IRA. So here I am, a Canadian, teaching a U.S. citizen on how to set an IRA. It's funny, I'm educating him on the whole process. Yeah, he was so delighted to know. He goes, "Oh my gosh, I didn't realize you could actually self-direct these yourself and invest whatever you want."
Oh,
And
that's
then
terrific.
I have another investor that I did some investing with a few years back, and
So,
um,
so
is
you
that
think
yeah
that you mentioned due diligence being, an opportunity to focus on. Raising capital doesn't sound like it sounds like it's an obstacle you have to overcome, but it doesn't sound like anything you can't overcome. What about?
no, no I was going to say if you follow the systems that the teachers out there tell you, people tell you out there, you just have to connect with them, send out send out your weekly or monthly emails, go to REI events, just go to networking events, the note investing, like the one that was in New Jersey there a couple of months ago.
Yeah, it's
Noteworthy,
terrific. Matt Allen and Mahir and Mark Gold. It's a really good show. A lot of
exactly.
people, when I started note investing in 2013, there's still a core group that's around. And,
right.
That's wonderful for me because I know in 5 years they're going to be around as well in 10 years and so on. So that's.
Yeah. They put on a really good event. I was really, really impressed with the one in New Jersey they put on.
So what about,
so it just, things like that.
Let me go. I'm going to jump to the next phase here for you, Chad.
Yeah, no
what
worries.
about sourcing? Is sourcing a challenge for you?
Well, I would say it kind of ebbs and flows. I find you'll get a tape, of say 500. You're like, oh my gosh, this is it's going to take me a year to go through this, but I've got my systems refined now where I can narrow it down to the 20 or 30 I want to bid on. You'll get that and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how many notes are out there right now. And then it kind of ebbs and flows, and then all of a sudden like a month will go by and you don't hear anything. Crickets. So I think in was it March or April? Yeah, through April, I think there was nothing coming in. I'm like, oh my gosh. And at that point, I'm like, I'm in acquisition mode again. Let's get rolling here. And then within like 2 weeks, I got probably 5-6 tapes from all different sources. So it comes over feasting or famine. It's
yeah.
You have too many assets to go through, or you're sitting there twiddling your thumbs wishing that you'd had one come in. So now that's definitely one thing I have to work on too. And I'm finding though that some of the tapes I'm coming in, they're getting regurgitated. They're coming from servicers, and those are always the ones that are the problem child that people are just getting rid of because they can't do anything with the property. Mind you, there are some diamonds in the rough if you do your due diligence and you look hard enough. I purchased one. When was it? November, December last year. It was a condo in Cleveland. So I don't buy condos you just HOAs, and it's in Cleveland, which I'm not a big fan of Cuyahoga County, but
yeah,
I used to do a lot of rentals and turnkey stuff there, so I know it fairly well. When I was doing so I thought this is pretty decent. The asking price was pretty decent, I guess. And it was from a well-known source. I won't name it, but he's well-known, kind of like one of those low-hanging fruits. But when I'm looking into it, I'm like, I know why this thing is getting passed up. It's because the HOA, the HOA had a massive lien, like $25,000 to $30,000 on the property, in addition to the first lien, obviously. Well, I did my research because I wasn't really that familiar with the state of Ohio laws. And I'm like, well, HOAs get wiped out in a foreclosure, like by a first lien foreclosure. So, and there's actually a magistrate's decision that I found in the court docket records that said that it was in the foreclosure HOA, but it was subject to, there's like, some fine print that said subject to the first lien. So I'm like, heck, this is a steal. So as soon as the HOA forecloses, we're just going to foreclose on them and get the property. So they do all the dirty work, getting rid of the current owner, the borrower, and then I can just swoop in, foreclose them out. So, and usually what the HOA do is they rent the unit out to try to recoup some until that's what everybody does down anyhow. So I'm like, that's probably what they're planning on doing. So I'm like, they're probably going to go in, paint it, carpet it.
You just
fix it all up, and then
or not. Yeah, or you're right. They'll probably get some restoration service done, knowing that it's it's an HOA. But you also have a time factor given it's Ohio for the foreclosure. As a judicial, have to go through the court system. And then but you're not going to get any mediation or any of that nonsense that Cuyahoga County does.
No, because it's already gone through that with the HOA. So they went through the magistrate, the magistrate made the decision and everything. So I'm assuming, I'm hoping that when we do the foreclose, that we don't have to go down that route. So since property, hoping, but in any, so that's one of those ones where I did where, like it passed around. I've been through a few funds, few hedge funds that are really, pretty recognizable in the business, and the HOA started foreclosing in 2012, and it just foreclosed like a couple of months ago. So I think they're probably just trying to get rid of it at that point in time. So so there are a few dimes in the rough, a few other.
Then you're looking at
but yeah, I
assignment
need to search
as an option, if there's any language to that effect.
Yeah, I guess that's something we'll be looking into as well. So, but it actually did sell at the foreclosure auction to a third party. And this poor person, I don't think realized it was subject to the first lien, because like I said, it was kind of buried in the language. So I just found on the dockets yesterday that they vacated the sale, so they're going to lose their deposit. This poor person, I don't know what they obviously didn't have anybody do the research for them, but anyhow, so now it's back into the foreclosure, or the HOA foreclosure auction again.
Oh, great. Just in talking to you here, Chad, what comes to mind is that I had put a post out a few days ago on if anyone has interest on joining into a mastermind. It's something that I just wanted to leave it open-ended. I think you would be a great candidate. You'd be a great asset for some others, but I know some others may have some strengths that you could build yourself off of as well. So
I'd be absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I'll probably repost it, and then it's not anything that I'm doing. I'm not doing it formally, and I'm not going to be a part of it. I just want to put it out there because I think that more people in the industry should form masterminds, themselves, and it shouldn't be anything structured. It should just be the group, and it should be free, and it should be the group puts it together, and everyone benefits off each other's knowledge.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'd be absolutely interested in joining that. So you said you're not going to be part of it?
I'm not going to be part of it. I'm writing. I don't want to give you the laundry list. Allie's on here. She knows. I have four children, 5 and under, and then I'm writing my third book.
5 and under, wow.
And I'm also in buy mode right now. And then I have some awesome, incredible proteges that I mentor, only a couple. And I try to give them what's in my mind, the little that's in my mind. And then, so I have a full plate, Chad. So if something gets added to it, something gets taken off. So if I jump into the mastermind with you, I might have to give away a child or something. I'm not going to do that.
No, obviously not.
Yeah. So, no, I'm in a very happy place right now, but with that said, you don't need me for anything. I mean, heck, I just want to put it out there, and I want like the note players and people that are serious and committed to just form and get together and network and be cohesive and learn and grow off each other. That's all I want. It'll make for, it'll make, Allie said, which child are we talking about? Well, let me say this, Allie. My daughter, Emily, woke up at 2:30 in the morning. So I've been up since 2:30 in the morning.
Oh, my gosh.
With that. So I started work at 3 a.m. So I would say Emily today if I had to call out a name.
I thought I got a post from you at like 4:37 or something.
I'm just doing my thing here. Wow. So, but I'm loving it. I'm loving the energy. I'm loving all the people that are coming into the space. I just hope that a lot of them stay, because I've just, in the 5 years I've been doing this, going on to 6, I just see people leaving all the time. So just a new, group of people. Yeah. Because, it's tough, Chad. I mean, it's tough.
Oh yeah, there's days where I just want to throw in the towel. Like I've got a rehab going on right now from an REO that I took back, and I'm trying to get out of that business. And it's in St. Louis, which is a city I've never done anything in my life in, and it's like pulling teeth getting contractors to even come out to the property. And then I had a general contractor give me kind of like a verbal bid on it, or a verbal quote, and like his quote was higher than the property's worth. I'm like, So I'm kind of piecemealing it myself, and so it's like I think that was one of the posts I made on the forum today, whatever the East Coast or the New Jersey forum today, that you're asking what your difficulties are in the note business. Yeah, it's rehabbing properties after you take them back. So,
well, here's when my whole transformation took place, and forgive me for if everyone's heard this 100 times, but when I first started buying first NPNs, and I was taking back the property 7 out of the 10 times. And then I start buying with the borrower's profile in mind in a loan modification objective. Then I started loan modding 7 out of the 10 times. So that's when I started building wealth for myself in my IRA and my IRAs and LLC. And that was the whole turning point. So, perhaps that could be, a question for a mastermind group as to how best to ensure that you're, achieving that desired objective with the exit strategy.
Right. Yeah. And that's actually another good reason why you want to go into a loan mod or keep the borrower in the property, because I really don't want the darn thing back. unless it's that scenario where like I said, they haven't paid in 5 years. They've given up, and you bought it for 50 and it's worth 100. You can just wholesale it for whatever, 90 grand, get rid of it quick and make a quick 80% return. Those don't happen very often, but when they do, you do a little dance. But those are kind of few and far between. But yeah, the loan mod is definitely the best route to go.
That's where it's at. We have one question, and then we're going to wrap up. We have Karina. Heath has, what about cash for keys? Does that help defer the damage to the REOs? And I'll leave that for you, Chad.
You know what? The ones that I've done so far, like I've got a couple of contract for deeds, and they, they don't even really think about it. I just got them to sign the cancellation of the contract, and they walked away. Now the properties were a disaster, but when you buy these low-end properties, you kind of go into them thinking that they're going to be disasters anyway. However, I'm doing a cash for keys on a higher end property right now for trying to get a deed in lieu. And they had agreed to it at the beginning. This was 2-3 months ago. I had my attorney, this is in Ohio, I think, draft up all the documents, sent them all there, and it's been crickets for like 2 months. So I don't know. I don't understand how people, what goes through their head. Like, I said,
here's the cash for anyway. Here's the cash for keys scenario that I've seen play out a few times. And that is you send a check to the realtor who's going to list the property, and they just want to give that check to the borrower no matter what. Broom ready, broom ready maybe at the front porch steps, but that's about it. They just want to get it all locked in and so they can offload it for you.
Yeah, and then there's 2 dumpsters of junk to haul out.
Yeah. When you hear that you need dumpsters, it's not like in the back of the pickup truck. You actually need physical dumpsters.
Yeah, well, this rehab I'm doing now took 2 30-yard dumpsters, and it was a 1,200 square foot house. So you can imagine the amount of junk was in it.
See, aren't you glad that's not like a 4.2 or something, right?
Yeah, exactly. Smaller property. Yeah,
bigger is not always better.
That's true. Yeah, it would have been 4 dumpsters full. So.
Well, Chad, I had a blast with you here, and
me as well. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you would do me a favor and just post your contact information in the comment section when we're done. Okay. And that way people can reach out to you. I'm going to post requests for, people that they want to sign up, or if they have interest for mastermind groups that they want to form. So that way the community can just put themselves out there and people can connect offline or through comments, whatever. And then we'll go from there. I had a blast with you, Chad, and
me as well.
Really happy I got to know you over this hour.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to meet at no conference.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And for everyone, thank you for joining us, and God bless.
Thanks, Martin.